Hello and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk. It's a beautiful weekend up here, and I prefer to say that it's beautiful regardless of what the weather is doing out there, especially knowing that we are just very human. I have no way of controlling the weather, and I am just grateful, as I think that most of us ought to be, about the opportunity to see one more day. Today, I have some very capable guests that will be discussing the subject of gender relations in relation to African men and women. We are going to be looking at the evolution, that is, the process and the progress of gender relations across time in Africa, among African men and women, those who remain on the continent of Africa and those who live here, because it doesn't matter where we live in the world, we are never that far away from our continent, which we all love very much. On the screen, to the right, if you as you watch, is Miss Joyce Osibodu, who is an accounting professional and a minister, a Christian minister, and it is in the latter capacity as a minister that she is here today, and I'm going to be discussing with everyone and asking her questions about what she sees in terms of gender relations and her work in that area. In the middle of the screen is Miss Golda Micah, who is a registered nurse, and in the course of her work, of course, she does see a lot of female patients who come with the various medical issues that are known to human beings, which we all deal with. But of course, because she's a woman, she also gets to hear many stories from many women, stories that someone like me, or my other guest, Sir Paul Inyang, really doesn't hear. So Sir Paul Inyang is not new to this program. He's been a guest a few times already. And Sir Paul, I welcome you.
Thank you.
He is here. He practices psychotherapy, and he's a very experienced African in this field and in so many areas. So Ms. Golda Micah, welcome.
Thank you.
And Ms. Joyce, welcome also.
Thank you.
Sir Paul, I'm just going to start with you because before coming here to this show, I read your Facebook page. So while I am not really trying to pick on you, I really want to explain. I want you to explain what you meant, because it's something that I was myself thinking about. That today is Valentine's Day, and you wrote, oh, "Yes, it is Valentine's Day, but everybody should be for love." Would that not be wonderful? If only we could show love to each other every blessed day, especially to those who have not known it. I'd like to ask you to explain what you meant, but the way that I like to put this question is this: especially when you say those who have not known Valentine's Day, or those who have not known love. It is true, isn't it, that even on this Valentine's Day, there are many women in Africa who really don't know that it's Valentine's Day. I am assuming that that's the kind of thing that we are referring to.
Yes.
Could you please explain further?
Yes, most definitely. In trying to prepare for today, I was looking at some things on the internet, and two pictures came to me. One was that there was a picture put out by a friend about Valentine's Day in 1965. And if you could look at that picture, you wouldn't see much difference between that celebration and what occurs today with the young people. The other was, I also saw a picture of a lady being given a community beating for having slept with somebody else, committed adultery with someone. And literally she was held by two men, and the ladies in the community and the men in the community took turns in what we would call in Africa flogging her. And so those two things came to my mind. And in thinking about it, it occurred to me, I had also called a friend in Nigeria, and I asked him, I told her, I said, Happy Valentine's Day in advance. And she says, well, that she doesn't really believe in Valentine. And I asked her, I said, why? She says, well, that love should be for every day and not just for one day. And the link economically for me is that last year I was in Nigeria during the Valentine celebration, and the city was bustling. People were out. It was a day that people went out to celebrate, and the hotels were doing brisk business, if you can imagine what I'm talking about. And so it was like it reminded me of what I experienced here, where it is. Valentine has turned from one of celebrating love to more of the commercialism, where you are actually, it is used to make money rather than to emphasize the issue of love. So those were the things that were in my mind when I wrote the piece on Facebook.
Right. Thank you very much. You know that you talked about the brisk business that you observed in Nigeria on Valentine's Day last year. But one would also not be wrong to think that even in the midst of that brisk business, there were still some women who didn't even feel or experience Valentine's Day for one reason or another. And Ms. Joyce, you see some of those women who, even in the midst of plenty around them, they really don't experience what that love is. That's Paul is talking about when he says that love should be every day. So those women that I'm talking about, against the background that as Paul spoke, what kinds of issues do they come to you with?
Thank you for that question. A lot of women, before I go into the issues they come to me with, I will go back to what Sir Inyang just said, that love is supposed to be celebrated every day. The Bible makes us understand that Christ is love. And if Christ is love, he so loved us that he gave us his only son. That is love. If you don't love yourself, you can't love a fellow human being, because what you love, you have to value that thing that you love. If you devalue what you profess to love, you cannot get that love back. So when these women come to me, which brings me to a few years ago when I went to Aba for mission trip, you could see women, even children. I was overwhelmed when it was my turn to speak on abuse or what love was. I was so moved because the type of things people experience, particularly in Africa, coming to this country, it gave me a different view or perspective of what love is supposed to mean.
Okay, thank you. Miss Golda Micah, you also grew up in Africa, and Miss Joyce just talked about having a different idea of love when she came to the United States because of what people experience in Africa. Please give us an idea of what you saw growing up, how love was demonstrated between men and women. And if you agree with her that you saw something different when you got here, because that is something that I have personally heard from a number of women, African women, I might add.
Thank you. What I saw growing up is that our men culturally do not express love openly. to most men, working and taking care of the family is taken as loving the woman and the children. And that's the way they express the love. They don't know any other way of expressing the love. So if you, the woman, are complaining that my husband doesn't love me, they find it strange. They said, but I'm going through all these things. I'm working, I'm taking care of you. You lack nothing. You have a house, you have a car, you have this and you have that. So when I was growing up, I saw love being expressed with material things. But when I came over here in this part of the world, I felt like I've seen something different where men express love openly. We see men holding hands in the streets, kissing openly, buying flowers and things like that. And African men, I would say, don't do that. I believe because of the culture or because of the way we were trained, they don't do that. Women also equate love with flowers, chocolate, kissing, and all that. And men also see love as taking care of the woman, making the effort to make her comfortable.
Okay, I believe you said, you were referring to men, women, when you said when you came to this country and you began to see men holding hands and kissing and buying flowers, you meant for women.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for women.
Okay. Sir Paul, are we being indicted here, African men?
I think there is a certain level of indictment, but I would have to say this, that I think our culture has a lot to do with the way we express love within the African context. As an example, I remember my mom visiting me once, and we took a ride on a bus. And there was a couple who was seated right at the back of the bus, kissing passionately. And my mom looked at them and just looked down, and then he asked me, he said, Paul, when you do that, how long does it last? In her mind, she couldn't equate being passionate with long-lasting love. It was just a momentary thing that needed to happen, but it didn't last long. And if you kept doing it for too long, it would create a problem in the relationship. That's how she looked at it. And so when the other part of it was that I see clients from different communities, and so I was once referred to a Muslim family I think they were from Senegal. And I was trying to talk to the lady about how she communicates with her husband. And I noticed that she had no eye contact with me. She looked down. And being the clinician I am, I pointed out to her that she needs to be looking at me, and she couldn't, she couldn't look at me directly in the face. And so I asked her, I said, what's the problem? Later on, she said to me that in her culture, women don't look at men in the face. They look down, they talk. When they talk as if they're looking to their feet, and they don't look straight in the eye. And that is a different expression of love that I've never seen before, and I wasn't so comfortable with, And I tried to talk to her about how do you communicate how you really feel to her. She says she's able to say what she wants to say. She doesn't have to look at him in the face, and she doesn't see a problem with it, So I think it has both cultural expressions, and also the expectations are different. And although the younger women and the modern African women expect more, as Golda said, it is true. But some men are still stuck out there to a point where if you see a couple outside and the wife wants to give the husband a kiss, they look at you funny. They look at you. There must be a motive behind being kissed outside. So really it's a mixture of issues, and culture and expectations have to do with the way men do it. I'm not exonerating men now. I'm not exonerating men at all, because we do know that we have to do those things these days to keep interest. But it's the gap, the learning curve is high for us.
Right. And so, Ms. Joyce, if you are seeing these women and some of the issues that they are still coming to you with, the same issues that we are talking about as regards back home in Africa, the question that I have is that how come immigration doesn't change that? If we come to this country and we see something different, and the women are still coming to you because they're not experiencing the kind of emotional contact with their partners that we see with partners in this part of the world, then it will suggest that it is difficult for African men to change, or for those things that we grew up with to actually change. Isn't that the case? And if it is the case, how come that is?
It shouldn't be the case, because Rome wasn't built in a day. So through gradual process, we expect that even if the men don't change totally, no matter what, the women would definitely see changes in some aspects. If you remember why we were growing up, Ohiro, we had parents, because if we have to go back to the culture too, we will see that in our days, or even in the days of our parents, even though the men provided the work, we still had instances where the women made more money, and yet they did not grumble, they did not complain. But the problem is culture, the cultural background. When I counsel these women, I tell them, you don't have to emulate other culture. We have our own culture. We are in a foreign land. These are Western cultures. These are things, if we were back home, we won't start pinpointing. But when you come here, you see these things happen, you just feel, oh, I'm missing out. This is how I'm expected to be, or this is what I expect from my own husband. But it shouldn't happen in one day. When we were growing up, we saw our parents too. They had just minor differences, but we never saw them argue. We never had them complain. They went through, and the marriages were successful. But when you complain too much, it brings problems into the marriages. And when I counsel them, I talk to them, you see, at times it works. And it's helped so many women, even in my church and amongst friends and colleagues at work. When they go through issues and they bring them, I just tell them, let's sit down. And I support it with biblical passages. And it's been so helpful.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Ms. Golda Micah, do you have anything to add to that?
What I have to add to that is that although women way back home, some of them made money more than the men, we did not complain. But the men were responsible. The men were the head. They played the headship role. They knew that they had to wake up in the morning, go to work, come back, take care of the family. On Sundays, they would take the family to church, and they kept the family together. And also there was the involvement of the extended family, the whole family was involved in the marriage. So the women, although you are the one, even if you are making more money than the man, you couldn't get up and talk anyhow, or you couldn't just behave anyhow, because the man was responsible. And you also saw the extended family, everybody was involved. Conflicts were resolved by the whole family, unlike here where conflicts are just resolved in our bedrooms and we take decisions and act on it. The whole family was involved in conflict resolution. So that was the difference. You were scared to be the one to initiate any divorce or anything. So I would say that way back home, that because of the structure of the family and the way we were closely knit with other families, even before you came into marriage, it involved the two families coming together. A lot of things went on before the marriage went on. So you can't just get up and say, I'm divorcing because I'm making more money, or because my husband is not working. It's not like that here. So I think that's the difference. We had support from the extended family, and the extended family was involved in the marriages. Unlike here, when everything happens in the home, decisions are made already in the bedroom before we even go to our ministers. And our ministers try to talk to us, and we think, oh, because she's a woman, she is supporting her. Or because he's a man, he's not listening to me. So we take our own decision here in the bedroom before we even get to the ministers. So I think that's the difference. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, it does. And then, Sir Paul, this brings me to you, because I think that Ms. Joyce and Ms. Golda, they have just really led me to this point that actually concerns me a great deal. We're talking about a time when our parents, who didn't really have the opportunities that we have now, were very responsible to their families. And you and I know that in Nigeria now, while young people are much more successful than anyone could have dreamed of many years ago, one hears so many stories of men that are abandoning their families, abandoning their responsibilities, even back home, and that really never was the case. Including ministers, pastors leaving their spouses for other women. They just leave their wives and children for other women. We know that to be happening a lot now. And you just travel in Lagos any morning now, and what you see are women, a lot of women, running their children to school and carrying a lot of things to get to the market. You just travel across Nigeria and you see that a lot of women really scrounging and working very hard to take care of their children because the men are not there. That wasn't our history. Is that your experience as well, Sir Paul? And what do you think happened?
Yes, it is my experience also. But I think what has changed also is what has happened is that has been an evolution in terms of our expectations. And the elephant in the room is intimacy. Within the African context, intimacy is described in many ways, in many ways, but it's never overt. It's an internal thing where it is between the husband and wife, and it expresses itself in different ways. And the expectations have certainly changed as we have evolved as a people. A good example is this. In some cultures in Nigeria, for instance, when the woman has children, they feel like they have finished their job. They've done what they're supposed to do.
Sir Paul, I'd like you to explain that point that you just made, that very often the African woman thinks that her job is done once she has had children.
Okay, are we on now?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
In a lot of cultures back home, when the woman has had kids and they feel like they've had enough kids for the man and they've done their part, they cease engaging in intimacy. Either through, I don't know whether it is a cultural thing or it's more of a practice, but you have even in many expressions, when they were even in polygamy, what they would do is they'd go and marry another wife, a younger person for the husband, and they'll get out of the business of procreation or what I would call recreational sex. So intimacy is a big issue, and men oftentimes do not even know how to ask for intimacy. So they have resorted to just running away from the problem. And it could be that they themselves are not in position to provide the intimacy, but it's not a process. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about it much, not in our bedrooms and not outside of the bedroom, because it isn't something that we really are used to expressing ourselves on. The gender expressions, sex itself has gender expressions in Africa that we have not bothered to really study and try to gain an understanding about. So I think that's part of the issue. And that's why you have some men just leaving their families and going to get it somewhere else, or thinking that if they marry someone else or deal with someone else, they'll get what they can't get at home. So I think it's an evolution and a change that just hasn't been dealt with,
Right. I like that line of thinking because you are suggesting at the very basic level that that intimacy is a physical manifestation of an emotional process, or of something that has an emotional basis. And if men really are lacking in that physical manifestation and really are not able to do it becomes even more difficult to demonstrate emotional intimacy with their partners. Therefore, instead of maintaining a relationship, the kind that we have been talking about, they go outside, which will somewhat explain at a very basic level why a man back home would not seem as kind to his wife as he will to his girlfriend outside. He will be more, right?
Yes, and there's another component with which has been a part of African practice for a while. In many cultures, having more women, either as a wife or a concubine, is an expression of affluence. That you have arrived in terms of is an economic expression of how that you have many, you have a lot.
Right.
So it is. There are many factors to it, and I think that it is one of those issues that we need to look at more closely, to look at all the levels of expression.
All right. Okay. Ms. Micah, I am following what Asa Paul is saying. It seems to me that inherent in that is one suggestion that there are many things that African men don't know, don't even want to explore, because no one has really guided them on that path, and or really don't want to know. And so, which leads me to one question. We have compared, starting with Ms. We have looked at how love is demonstrated here in the United States or in the Western world between men and women, and how it was back home or is back home, because there has been an evolution in that. So the question that I have is, are men, African men, wrong when they say, for example, Western women don't want the same thing that African women want? So if you start treating them in such a loving way as Western men do to their partners, the women will disrespect you. And you lower yourself as a man if you begin to open your car doors, open car doors for your woman, if you begin to interact at that level of emotional weakling.
Quote unquote.
I think I think the men are very, very wrong. They think like that. Before I answer the question, I would like to comment on what Sir Paul said about the fact that when a woman feels she has arrived after she has a baby, or she has finished having children. I would like to say that that's how it appears, but maybe before the woman had children, she didn't have much to do. It was only her table, her fork, and her man. But after she had children, she's now going to do, African men don't help around the house. So she's now going to take care of the children and do everything. Whereas she's trading, she's going to the market, she's taking care of the children, and she's tired. Intimacy starts from the mind. So when the man is home and the man is not helping the woman, and the woman has to do things, at the end of the day, she's very tired. And she even resents the fact that you, the man, you are sitting down, looking at her, going through this, and you are not helping. So everything starts from the mind. Intimacy starts from the mind. If you are going to be intimate, we are going to be intimate in the evening. When you start in the you wake up in the morning, it has to start from the morning. You, the man, don't sit and look at me to take them to school, help them with homework, go to their PTA and all those things. At the end of the day, the woman may be tired because she has children. Maybe when she didn't have children, it wasn't like that. But now that she has children, it's appearing like not interested in the intimacy part. But it's because of the things that she's going through, and the man is not reaching out to her to even find out what she's going through. So it appears like that. So coming back to the question, are men wrong? Yes, they are wrong. I think they are very wrong because when we come to this part of the world, we the women see that men are treating the women differently, and we like it. It's just nice for you to open the car for me, or for you to buy me a lot of roses and all that. That doesn't make me, that doesn't change me as a woman, and that doesn't change the way I relate to you. It may enhance, or it may enhance the relationship when you do that, because where we come from, we don't see those things, but we long for it. We, the women, long for those things. It's not our culture, but when we come here, we see it and we want it. And so I think that when the men start to do that, it would enhance the relationship. We are not saying that they should go all the way and behave like the men that were born here, but we see it and we appreciate the effort. If you put in effort, we see it and we appreciate it. But we also know that that's not our culture and that's not how we were trained. So we understand. So all we are asking is that you make the effort, and then we'll meet you in the half point. Thank you.
Right. So, Ms. Joyce, Golda Micah is saying that women, even in this country, do a lot. Women back home do a lot, and women in this country do a lot. So they are really not asking men to do that much. They want men to show just a little bit of appreciation that they have partners. That's not really asking a lot. So if men don't know these things, African men don't know these things, who should teach them?
The women, of course, are not just the women. The church also is lacking in this aspect. Mm-hmm. Where you find ministers of God that should even talk. That's why we have men fellowship in churches. We have men fellowship, we have women fellowship. If during our meetings we encourage ourselves on how to keep the home. The men ought to encourage them, because times you find even the so-called pastors, they are not truthful. You go to church, you tell your pastor, this is what I'm going through in my home. They tell you, don't worry, I'm going to talk to him. The next thing, when the two men meet, it's don't mind her. What does she want? Back home, she say that. It's in churches. So, and you find when a woman is going through some issues at home, they don't even want to give her a role in the church. They say because she doesn't have a stable home, she doesn't respect the man. Respect is reciprocal. That's the way we should look at it. Women, the way we are made is in the Bible. We are better half. We are just a better half of the man. We are weak. Do little thing a woman, she appreciates it as if it's gold. That's what we ask from the men. We are not asking that the men should put their headship down and let us take over the home to rule the homes. No. If you are the head of the home, show that you are the head. That's what we ask. Cherish the women. Because when you cherish them in the presence of their kids, the kids will know it carries on. Because they see it. When they grow up, to cherish whoever they are in relationship with.
Sir Paul, I like to move this conversation because I'm listening to all of this. I'm listening to the women that we have here today. And I think I have to acknowledge that we have some work to do. But I'm thinking even on a broader level, we are having a discussion here about culture and power and economics and how those impact relationships. And on a broader level, I'm asking myself, if you look at the statistics, for example, in Africa, or let's say around the world, we have 60% of the world's poorest people are women. And in the West African countries of Mali, Burkina Faso, Benin Republic, and Nigeria, close to 65% of the women live in poverty. In Congo, 1.8 million, which actually ranges at the rate of 1 woman per minute, is raped by men. So I am actually sitting here and I'm wondering if all of these things are the way they are, and we really should not be disputing that because we really can't, because it is the case. Can we then go from there to say that one of the reasons why women are in the situation, one reason the plight of women is the way it is because the leadership of the world, and definitely the leadership of Africa, is actually really seriously comprised of men?
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely, it is true, and that's where the indictment comes in, because it is so true that the poorest are poor in Africa are the women, and yet the people who raise the children are the women. I can always go back to my own personal experience in the sense that, I had a young man I went to school with. And most of us who are from understand the concept of mama put. Those are the women who cook and sell food on the streets, right? And his father was a government worker, and he wanted to come out to America and study just like I did, and he wanted to go to school, but he couldn't. There wasn't any money. When he talked to his father about it, his father said, "There's no money. Get out of my face. Go to school just like everybody else." But his mother asked him and said, "How much is required for this stuff?"
Mm-hmm.
And she said he went and found out, and then she said, "Okay, I'll be back." She went and dug the ground, and where she had been storing money in the ground, and counted the money exactly. I mean, she counted enough money for him to go pay his school fees for a whole year, and for him to be able to fly out to America to study. And if you saw her, you wouldn't know that she had any money. She was a hawker, basically a hawker who hawked food. And but that boy is who he is today because of his mother. It plays out in Africa because men tend to devalue the experience of women and devalue what they contribute to the family financially. It is so. Even as a child growing up, I found many times that when I asked my dad something, he would always tell me, "Unless it's school fees, don't talk to me about it." And the person who always provided it was mom. And so we have this dichotomy that exists in our culture where women are treated in many ways like subservient, but are actually the people who raise the families and who we need to empower. That's why you have a lot of programs these days, like microfinance programs, where you have women being empowered in the community to start businesses, anywhere from India all the way to some of Africa, to begin to give women, and women are becoming in business. They are creating business, and they are really properly. And in many times, men don't do that. So I think that you are right. There is something to be said about the poverty that exists within the population of women, and the need to begin to empower women more in Africa. But also, what is happening now also is that women are getting more educated. So there is some ascendancy there, but it is not quite enough yet. We have a long way to go, and so government itself has to address it in a structural way to begin to empower women, so that that's not the case.
Okay. Right now, I want to go down to talking about our individual responsibilities because of what you just said, Sir Paul. It is very true, because if you look at the statistics in the latest statistics that we have as far as economic development in Africa, in West Africa, was from 2012. And in that year, 70% of women in Ghana reported being self-employed. In Tanzania, it was around the same figure. And one of the reasons that that's the case is because governments are irresponsible. Women have foresight. Women have been able to get this. And women have taken microfinance loans, which they pay back very quickly to be able to establish those businesses. And so I come to you, Ms. Joyce. What is our responsibility, our collective responsibility as a society, African society, and our responsibilities as individuals? What is our responsibility to make change happen at any level that you want to address, whether it's in the level of individual relationships between men and women, or at the level of men just beginning once again to stand up to their responsibilities the way that our fathers and grandfathers did, or at political level, what is our responsibility to make sure that change happens, and what can we do as individuals and as a collective?
As individuals, I think we need to start with the younger generations now. Because if we talk of the political level, what is the change that is going to come? Because from the political level, they are corrupt. Anyone who initiates starting something for women is where he or she will get something out of that they are just interested in. Because we started something in my church that every March we have a convention where women meet, women in ministries, women leaders of all parishes, we meet, we discuss, and we take that discussion back to our various churches where we encourage women to start little business. Whatever ideas we bring from such conferences, it holds every March in Atlanta, and we bring those ideas to the parishes, and we tell them, as women leader in a parish, I just come and I tell the women, this is what happened at the convention. We need 1 or 2 people that can start something here. If you need help, we will be willing and available to give you help. So also we could initiate in our various families. We can start. It starts from the family. Building starts from your own family before you go out there. So how can we help? It should start from us, from our children. We tell them this was what it was like growing up, and as you grow up, this is what I want. What area do you want them to emulate? You introduce it. You tell them they too, they are carriers of the gospel. Little children, they have friends. They discuss. We see little kids out there selling lemonades, and they took this idea from their parents or in mothers or friends. That's where it starts, grassroots.
Same question to you, Sir Paul. What is it we can and should be doing?
I think for me, it starts with education, and it starts something long ago. My father was a professor in the university, so he started putting this idea into our heads much longer. He encouraged his children, these female children, to go to school to the maximum. His promise was, the further you go, I'll be there with you. I want you to have something in your hand to be able to take care of yourself. The other thing he did that was significant to me, and in thinking back then, it draws good memories for me. In that, my dad never believed in the whole system of dowry. You know how we have dowries in our culture. His dowry was always a naira. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I said, why do you take a naira for a dowry? And he said, I have no daughter to sell. And by that he meant he would always tell his sons-in-law, treat her right. She must be the best she can be. If she's not the best she can be, I will come get her myself and train her to be the best she can be. So it was always hanging over anybody who married any of my sisters. So I got that lesson from him. And so that was on a personal level. And so my commitment has always been to train my children to the best, my female kids to the best that they can be. And so I think education is quite one that we can do. The other is what both ladies have pointed out, and that is the need to empower and invest in women. Not to see them as investments. That's two different things, because when you see women as investment, it leads to all kinds of problems. Okay, because it leads to other issues that we don't have the time to decide. But to invest in them, rather than, so if a lady has a good idea to start a business, you can invest financially in that business and give her the opportunity to do it, starting from the village level all the way up, as much as you can. So it never interests me to have people ask for money. I'm more interested when people talk to me about, I have this business to start. Can you help me start it? What can you contribute to start that business? And so that's that's where we are looking at. We are beginning to look at as on a personal level, and so that we can begin to help people reorient themselves and understand that women have ideas and they need to be empowered to use those ideas. For most part, now in Africa, I think most of the businesses that are starting now are run by women, and the successful ones are mostly run by women now. You know, I dare to say that that's the case right now. So we need to begin to build on that and empower them.
Right. Interesting about that is that so many men are the ones that you see in parties and everywhere who want to present that they're wealthy, they're big shots. But the richest black woman in the world is actually a woman. The richest woman in the world is an African, you know, and it's a Nigerian woman, and is richer than any man in Africa. She doesn't have political power, and you're right. I agree with you. We need to be paying attention to things like that. And Ms. Golda, same question to you.
I think I agree with Ms. Joyce and Sir Paul on all that is said. There's a saying that if you educate a woman, you educate a what, Sir Paul? If you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation, right?
Nation, yes.
Yes. As opposed to educating a man, you educate an individual. So I agree with all that is said. All that I wanted to add was to ask their husbands to get involved. Because if a woman is going to have an education, or if a woman is going to be successful after having so many children, the man has to also help in a way. So we are asking the men to also get involved more, so the women are able to empower themselves.
Oh, thank you very much. I really, I think we could actually continue this conversation for the entire day, the entire weekend, but we have only just scratched the surface. And I am really grateful that you accepted my invitation to come. We are going to continue to have this conversation, and please keep your phone on, keep your telephones on, because I'm going to be calling on you to come back. There are many things we haven't discussed as it relates to the plight of women in Africa. We only, as I said, just scratched the surface, and we will continue to talk. I wish you a very pleasant evening, and enjoy whatever is left of the weekend, and enjoy whatever weather is out there for you. So have a great weekend, and my
Thank
regards.
you for having me.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Ladies, thank you.
Paul, it's nice to finally meet you. I enjoy every bit of your write-ups.
Thank you very much.